Hello and welcome to Rise and Shine. For tonight's story, we have a touching tale of a father's unconditional love for his daughter. The story follows Alex, a devoted father, from the moment his daughter Emily is born through the milestones of her life. Emily grows from a curious child to an independent young woman. Alex struggles with letting go while fiercely protecting and supporting her dreams. Through financial hardships, teenage conflicts, and life's transitions, their bond remains unbreakable. As Emily starts her own family, Alex reflects on the lasting power of his love, which shapes their lives across generations, proving that a father's love is truly unconditional and everlasting. So close your eyes and relax. It's time to begin. Chapter 1. A New Beginning. The air was thick with the scent of freshly fallen rain. It had been a long night of anticipation, and now the world seemed quiet. Inside the small hospital room, soft beeping noises punctuated the stillness. On the bed lay Maria, her hair matted to her forehead with sweat. The exhaustion from labor painted her face, but she wore a smile that radiated more warmth than any sun. Across from her, on the other side of the bed, stood Alex, her husband. His heart pounded in his chest as he gazed at the small bundle cradled in Maria's arms. Wrapped tightly in a blanket, with her tiny hands peeking out, was their newborn daughter, Emily. "She's perfect," Maria whispered softly, her voice trembling with emotion. Alex couldn't tear his eyes away from Emily. He had never known a love like this. It was instant, overwhelming, and powerful. He gently reached out to touch his daughter's cheek with his finger, marveling at how small and delicate she was. He had built things all his life, houses, fences, even bridges. But this little being in front of him was the most incredible creation he had ever witnessed. "She's ours," Alex said, his voice thick with emotion. "She's really ours." As Maria drifted into a peaceful sleep, exhausted from childbirth, Alex took Emily into his arms. He sat down in the chair by the window, holding her close to his chest, listening to her soft breaths. It was in this moment that Alex made a promise, one that would guide him for the rest of his life. He promised to always protect her, to love her unconditionally, and to be the best father he could be, no matter what the future held. Chapter 2. Early Years. The first few years of Emily's life flew by in a whirlwind of sleepless nights, endless diaper changes, and countless moments of joy. Alex and Maria were constantly amazed by how quickly their little girl grew. She went from crawling to walking, babbling to speaking, all in what felt like the blink of an eye. Emily had a fiery spirit from the start. Her laughter was infectious, her curiosity insatiable, and her heart full of kindness. She loved exploring the world around her, always asking questions and seeking answers. Alex found himself rediscovering life through her eyes. Simple things like the chirping of birds or the rustling of leaves became wondrous when Emily pointed them out with her chubby little fingers and wide eyes. Every morning, Alex would get up before dawn to go to work at his construction company. But no matter how tired he was, he always made time for Emily. He cherished their moments together, the walks to the park, The bedtime stories, the silly games they played. It didn't matter how hard his day had been. As soon as he saw her smiling face, everything else melted away. One evening when Emily was around 3 years old, she came running up to Alex with her arms outstretched. "Daddy," she cried, her face beaming with excitement. "Look what I made." In her hands was a drawing, a crude crayon depiction of their family. Alex couldn't help but smile as he looked at the stick figure family, with Emily in the middle, holding hands with him and Maria. "That's beautiful, sweetheart," Alex said, kneeling down to her level. "Is that us?" "Yeah," Emily exclaimed. "That's me, and that's you and Mommy. We're all together." Alex felt his heart swell with pride. He scooped Emily up in his arms and kissed her forehead. "We'll always be together, Emily, I promise," he said, holding her close. Chapter 3. The Storms of Life. As the years passed, life became more complicated. Alex's construction business began to struggle, and money became tight. Maria had to take on extra hours at her job as a nurse. Leaving Alex to juggle his work job and taking care of Emily. Despite the financial strain, Alex was determined to make sure Emily never felt the weight of their hardships. To make sure Emily, now 8 years old, was as vibrant as ever. She loved school and had an insatiable thirst for knowledge. She adored reading, especially when Alex would read to her before bed. They had made it a nightly ritual. When Alex would, no matter how busy life got, they had made it a nightly ritual. One night, after a particularly long day at work, Alex came home to find Emily sitting on the living room floor, surrounded by her books. She was trying to read one, but her face was scrunched up in frustration. "What's wrong, kiddo?" Alex asked, sitting down beside her. "Kiddo? I don't understand this word, Daddy." "What's wrong, kiddo?" she said, pointing to a word on the page. "Daddy," she said. Alex leaned in and looked at the word on the page. It was a complicated one for her age. On the page, he smiled, Alex, and pulled her onto his lap. He smiled. "Let's figure it out together," he said. He smiled, and they spent the next hour going through the book, he said, word by word. No matter how tired he was, and Alex never let it show how tired he was. He knew that these moments with Emily were fleeting, and he knew that these miss a single one. He wanted to be there for every question, every challenge. He wanted to be there for every. But the financial stress was starting to take its toll. The construction business wasn't bringing in enough income, and they were falling behind on bills, and they were falling consumed with worry. But he kept it hidden from Emily. She was too young to bear the burden from adult problems. All she needed to know was that her daddy loved her. All she needed to know was that he would be there for her, and that no matter what, Maria, too, was feeling the strain. The long hours at the hospital were exhausting, and she missed spending time with her family. The weight of their financial struggles was creating tension between her and Alex. They argued more often than they ever had before. Their voices hushed, but sharp before, trying to keep their disagreements out of Emily's earshot, trying to keep their. One particularly bad night, after a heated argument, Alex stepped outside to clear his head. He sat on the porch, his face buried in his hands. He sat on the porch, feeling the crushing weight of failure pressing down on him. He felt like he was letting his family down on him, and it tore him apart. Family down. Suddenly, the screen door creaked open, and Emily stepped outside. Her small figure bathed in the soft glow of the porch light. She walked over to her father and climbed into his lap. She walked over, wrapping her arms around his neck. Into his lap. "I love you, Daddy," she whispered. "I love." Alex held her tightly. His heart aching with emotion. "I love you too, aching sweetheart. More than anything," he whispered back, his voice cracking. It was in that moment that Alex realized something important. No matter how much money they had, no matter how many struggles they faced, no matter how much money the love he had for his daughter was the most important thing in the world. The love he had for his, that love was unbreakable in the world. And as long as he had that, he could face anything. Chapter 4. Teenage years and growing pains. As Emily grew into her teenage years, the dynamic between her and Alex began to change. Between her, the once bubbly and carefree little girl was now a teenager. The once bubbly, full of emotions, opinions, now a teenager, and a fierce desire for independence. She still loved her father deeply, but she often found herself frustrated by his protectiveness and his old-fashioned ways. And his old-fashioned, for his part, found it difficult to let go. For his part, he still saw Emily as his little girl to let go, and he struggled to adjust to the fact that she was growing up girl. He wanted to protect her from the world, from the mistakes she might make. He wanted to protect her from the heartaches that life inevitably brings. She might make, but he knew that he couldn't shield her from everything brings. He had to learn to let her spread her wings. He had to learn to. One evening when Emily was 16, she came home later than expected. Alex had been pacing the living room, worry gnawing at him. Had been pacing when she finally walked through the door. His relief quickly turned to anger. "Where have you been?" Quickly turned, he demanded, his voice louder than he intended. He demanded. Emily, taken aback by his tone, rolled her eyes. "I was just at Sarah's house, Dad. I told you I'd be just late. At Sarah's house. You were supposed to be home an hour ago." Late. Alex shot you back, his worry making him sound harsher than he meant to. Making him sound harsher than he meant. Her teenage defiance. Emily crossed her arm. "Why are you always on my case? I'm not a little kid anymore," she snapped. "I'm not a little kid anymore." Clenched at her words. He knew she was right. She wasn't a little kid anymore. He knew she was right. But that didn't stop him from wanting to protect her. But that didn't. "I just worry about you, Em," he said, his voice softening. "I want you," he said, "to be safe." Emily's expression softened as well, but the tension between them softened as well. "I know, Dad," she said quietly. Lingered. "But you have to trust me. I'm not going to do anything stupid. I'm not going to do anything stupid." Running a hand through his hair, Alex sighed. He didn't know how to explain the fear that gripped him every time she left the house. The world was a dangerous place, and the thought of something happening to her was a dangerous place. "I do trust you," to her was he said finally. "But you're still my little girl," he said finally, "and I'm always going to worry about you, my little girl. It's part of being a dad." Emily smiled faintly, her irritation melting away. Emily smiled. "I know, Dad, and I love you for it. But you have to let me grow up, and I love you for it." Alex nodded, though it was hard for him to accept. He pulled her into a hug. Though it was hard for him to her tightly. I'll always be here holding for you, Em. No matter what. Always be here. He whispered. Chapter 5. What? He whispers pride. As Emily entered her final year of high school, she became more focused on her future. She became more of going to college, of becoming a teacher. She had dreams of making a difference in the world. Becoming a teacher couldn't have been prouder of her. She had grown into a strong, intelligent, and compassionate young woman, and he knew that she was destined for great things. But with her graduation looming, Alex also felt a sense of bittersweet sadness. His little girl was growing up of bittersweet and would soon be leaving home. The thought of not seeing her every day, and would soon be not hearing her laughter fill the house was hard every day. Of not hearing her. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, Emily looked over at her father and smiled. I got accepted to the University of Chicago. She said, I got accepted. Her voice filled with excitement and pride. She said, her voice, Alex's heart swelled with pride. But there was also a pang of sadness. Pride. That's amazing, Em, he said, smiling through the emotions swirling inside him. Smiling through the... Emily studied his face, sensing the mixed feelings behind his smile. Sensing you're proud of me, right? She asked, her voice uncertain. Of course I am, her voice Alex replied, his voice firm. I'm so proud of you. You've worked so hard for this. I'm so proud, and you deserve every bit of success that comes your way. Emily smiled. That comes your way. But her expression was tinged with sadness. But her expression to miss you, Dad, she said quietly. Alex's throat tight. She said quietly. He had been dreading this moment, the moment when he would have to let go. He had been to watch his daughter take her first steps into the world without him. Take her first steps into the world. I'm going to miss you too, sweetheart, he said, his voice thick with emotion. But I know you're going to do great with emotion, and I'll always be here, great cheering you on, no matter where you are, cheering you on. They sat in silence for a while, both of them grappling with the emotions of this new chapter in their lives. It was a moment of chapter in their lives, of growth, but also a reminder of the unbreakable bond they shared. Chapter 6. Letting Go. The day Emily left for college was one of the hardest days of Alex's life. He stood in the driveway of Alex's life, watching as she loaded her car with boxes of her belongings, watching it, trying to keep his emotions in check of her belongings. Maria stood beside him in check, her arm wrapped around his waist, offering silent support. Her arm wrapped around. Emily turned to her parents, support, her eyes brimming with tears. To her parents, I'll come home for every holiday. She promised, home, her voice trembling. Alex nodded, his throat too tight to speak. He pulled her into a tight hug, his throat too tight to let go. I love you, Em. Tight hug, he whispered into her hair. I'm so proud of you. He whispered into her hair. Emily replied, her voice muffled against his chest. I love you too, Dad. As she pulled away and climbed into her car, muffled against his chest. Alex felt a deep ache in his chest. He waved as she drove away. Alex felt a deep ache. The sound of the engine fading into the distance. As she drove away, and just the sound that his little girl was gone, and just like off to start a new chapter of her life. Chapter 7. Distance and Connection. The months passed, and though Emily was physically distant, she and Alex remained close. Though Emily was physically distant, they spoke on the phone every week, sometimes for hours at a time, catching up on her classes, sometimes for hours at a time, and the adventures she was having. Her new friend, though Alex missed her terribly, she was having. He was grateful for the bond they still shared. He was grateful. One weekend, during her second year of college, Emily came home. During her second year of college, Alex had been looking forward to it for weeks, counting down the days until he could see her again. For weeks. When she arrived, he hugged her tightly, feeling a sense of completeness. When she arrived, that had been missing since she left. Sense of completeness over dinner had been missing. Emily told her parents about a project she had been working on in one of her education classes. She was been working on in one of her a teacher and making a difference in the lives of young children, just as her own teachers in the lives of young children. Alex listened with pride for her as she spoke, marveling at the young woman she had become. She was marveling at the young woman she had become, and driven. She had taken all the love and support he had given her, and she had taken all the love of a bright future for herself, and used. Chapter 8. The unbreakable bond. Years passed, and life continued to change. Emily graduated from college and became a teacher, fulfilling her dream of shaping young minds. Fulfilling her dream of shaping with pride as she navigated her career. Alex watched, always amazed by her dedication and her compassion. Always, as the years went by, Alex's hair began to gray, and the lines on his face hair began to gray. He and Maria enjoyed their quieter life, though they missed the constant energy that Emily had brought to their home. They visited her often, and she came home whenever she could. But life was moving forward, and she came home whenever she does. One day, when Alex was in his 60s, Emily came to visit with a surprise. When Alex was in his 60s, she brought her fiancé, Mark, a kind and thoughtful man who shared her love for teaching. And Alex had always hoped that Emily would find someone who treated her with the love and respect that Emily deserved, and he was relieved to see respect she deserved. At their wedding, Alex stood beside Emily, his heart full of pride, stood beside and love. As he walked her down the aisle, he whispered to her, as he walked her down the aisle, life takes you. You'll always be, no matter where, little girl. You'll always Emily squeezed his hand, her eyes brimming with tears. Emily squeezed his hand. I know, Dad, she whispered back. And I'll always need you, he whispered back. Chapter 9. Full circle, years passed, and soon Emily became a mother herself. Alex and Maria welcomed their first grandchild, a beautiful baby girl named Lily, into the world. A beautiful, as Alex held his granddaughter for the first time, he was overwhelmed by the same feelings he had experienced when he held Emily for the first time. Feelings he had experienced years ago. The love, all those years. The protectiveness, the awe, the love. It was all still there, just as strong as ever. It was all. As he watched Emily with her daughter, as strong, Alex realized that the love he had given her had come full circle. Alex realized that passing that same unconditional love to her own child. She was now just as he had done for her. Life was full of challenges, just as heartaches and joys. But through it all, the bond between a father and his daughter remained unbreakable. The bond between a father was a bond built on love, unbreakable, and the promise that no matter what, a father's love for his daughter would always be there. Father's love for his daughter, and unconditional, and unwavering, and Alex found peace, and in that, the end.